As you might guess, my next build is probably going to do with. Here's the thing. So, back in 77, you got to figure 10-year-old kid goes to see Star Wars. The first thing that blew my mind about Star Wars was you see all these commercials about these with these guys running around in white, and you have this picture in your head of what you're gonna see, and then you get there, and the guys in white aren't the good guys, which was in contrast to the picture, the girl in white, who obviously was a good guy. But you knew Darth Vader was a bad guy. No two rings about that. But again, as the movie progressed, you got used to seeing different things that stood out. You knew that by the end of the movie, you have Darth Vader had a red lightsaber. That that was what that was. The good guy, Ben Kenobi, had a blue lightsaber. All the stormtroopers had blasters, and it was that particular blaster is what we're talking about. So in universe, this is the E11 blaster. Wikipedia says, and I quote, E11 blaster rifle was a light but powerful blaster rifle manufactured by Blastech Industries. It served as the standard issue weapon of Imperial stormtroopers as and was based on the DC-15A blaster used by the clone troopers during the Clone Wars. Okay, so back then we didn't know anything about the Clone Wars, but as a weapon, you look at the description and then you look at how they use it in the film, and arguably you're just like, well, they can't hardly hit anything. But to be fair, from the standpoint of a person who's actually worn a stormtrooper helmet, you can't see nothing. So it's gonna be hard to hit. But I digress. Actually, I've already done this once. Uh, you may or may not know, I had a break in at my storage a couple of almost a year ago, and one of the things that had gotten taken was my blaster. So I've actually already done this, but I'm going to use the experience that I had from that previous build to improve on this build, which is why I'm calling this one Lessons from the Past. An E11. What we were gonna call it uh, Blaster Build E11 Lessons from the Past. I really think I'm going to be able to improve on my time. I'm in building, but it's still going to take a long time to get some of the pieces together. The first piece, which I already have, is the British Sterling itself. You have to get one demilitarized. What that means is they take the gun, they put it on a cutting table, and they either cut it apart with, if you're lucky, they cut it apart with a bandsaw, and then you have these nice clean cuts. Or mine was cut up with a torch, and so you've got and it's cut at odd angles, but it's cut well enough to where you can weld it back together. So the first time I did the whole project, I had to teach myself how to weld. I had to teach myself how to braze, and I kind of struggled with it. But after a couple of years of growing in the, you never stop learning, you never stop growing. I've learned a couple of things. I've learned a little bit more about welding, and maybe not necessarily how metal moves or whatever, but I have a better understanding of what I need to do, and I have a better game plan. Let's look at the kit I got, which is the British Sterling, which is cut up. So first you're going to look at that. And then also in the picture on the left, you see the metal tube with the white paper wrapped around it. That is the receiver tube. So if you are going to build the gun, there are a couple of ways to do it. You can get the pieces and weld them back together and then fill in the gaps with welded metal or whatever. Or you can go buy a receiver tube, which what I chose to do, cut the pieces off that I need cut the pieces off the welding pieces at 90 degrees, which is how I'm going to do. I'm going to cut them off at 90 degrees, and then I'm going to weld it onto this welding tube. Weld it onto the welding tube, and then go from there. The thing about it is I noticed all around the gun there you have these T tracks. They look kind of like windshield wiper blades, and they're going into the vent holes around the barrel. And so there were 76 of those holes, and I drilled every single one of those last time. Burned up several drill bits, almost burned up my baby drill press trying to get it done. And then I ended up covering them up with the T-tracks. So I don't think I'm going to do that this time. I don't think I'm going to waste my time drilling out all those holes because it wasn't necessary. So, like I said, lessons from the past. So let's get started. Yeah, let's get started. We'll get to cutting some metal, and what we're gonna do is intersperse this with, because this is gonna be a long time in building. At least I think it's gonna take a long time to build. So what we'll do is we'll do a segment of this, and then we might build another couple of models while I'm working on the other. And that way we'll go back and forth that way. That way there isn't a whole large gap in content. So bear with me. We're going to get this done, and we're going to make a new blaster. sparks, they were fire. What did I just see? Like I said, a demilitarized weapon. This is the tip of the barrel. This is how they cut. They cut it with a torch and they cut it at an angle. So what the sparks you were seeing was the back end of the gun that was cut at this angle, and I cut it at a 90-degree. Okay, so that's what the spark. So I still need to take this one and cut it off level like this. So then I take this tube, this end, right, and it's got the marks on it. So you see anywhere you have these little hash marks is where it has to be cut out, and it will make your openings. So now all I have to do is do like that, mark the tube, and then cut it. Then I take this tube, which is copper, and I slide it in. And if you'll imagine that this was already cut to the 90, I take this piece, I put it on the end, I line it up with where it's supposed to be lined up to, and then weld it. So just tack, tack, tack. And once it's tack welded and it's straight and aligned, then I can go on ahead and do a finish weld all the way around. Turn around with this, same thing. That may be a problem. Yeah, we might have to rethink that deal. And here's why. Because when I weld it, the welding material won't stick to the copper, which is why I'm using that. So I'm only going to be able to get one end. So, to where it's going to be absolutely straight. And the bottom end, since the bolt is going to go in there and slide up and down, this end really needs to be straight. But I really want to make sure my tip on there is straight. So we might have to think this one through a little bit. But so that was the sparks. Now the fire. The fire was, oh, hold on. So all these pieces are, this tube is this tube. All these pieces are brazed on, which is kind of like soldering, but it's just at a higher temperature. So what I had to do is debraze them from that. So like this here, that right there is that. So I'm gonna, when I cut it out, it's gonna look like that. This part was on here. So I heated it up, got that off there. The handle came off, and then there was a little guard there. So I need to take these cut pieces and take them to a wire wheel and clean them up, get all the old brazing material off, get it as smooth as possible. Then I need to cut my holes out so I can align this stuff. Alright, that's gonna go just like that. So that'll go there. That'll go there. Starting to look like a, well, not yet. I get excited when I get that on. When you get that part on there, and then it looks like a blaster. So, since I doubt you want to see me standing there and getting rust off on the old wire wheel, we're going to call it quits for the night. So, go build something. I am. Pew 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 pew. And you're like, what? Wait a minute. Wait, what?